Hello and welcome back to World of Tanks. You're listening to Coffee Guy, and today I've got another review for you. This time it's the Tier 6 British Premium Medium Tank, the Sherman VC Firefly. Now, first of all, apologies about the huge delay in getting this review out. I'm aware it's been almost a month since my last one. And it's really just because I've been moving house in the middle of lockdown, and it's taken up pretty much all of my waking hours getting stuff transported across and getting repairs done and things set up. But luckily that's all now coming along quite nicely, and hopefully I'll be a bit more regular with my content going forward. So this review it's really at the request of one of my subscribers on YouTube, John Lant, who asked if I could do either the Centurion or one of the Fireflies. I was pondering doing the Centurion, but then I thought I might try and do something clever and factor in the different Swedish and British models and how they're linked, and that sounded like a lot of work, and then I thought, right, it's easier just to do the Firefly VC at the moment. So yeah, the Firefly, it's really, really famous. Why is it so famous? Well, in a nutshell, it was one of the only tanks that allowed the Allies the Western Allies, Britain, America, and the various other countries fighting alongside them, to compete with the late war German tank designs like the Panthers and the Tigers, which obviously had quite a lot of armour. And it was a bit of a, not accidental, but ramshackle approach to making a tank, in that the British War Office didn't think that the new 17-pounder gun could really be fitted on a Sherman, and they tried to put it onto a modified Cromwell chassis, and that's how you got the Challenger, which is coincidentally a really, really fun tank destroyer, but in real life it was a bit naff. It didn't have very good armour and it had a massive silhouette, so it wasn't really ideal. And so I think it was a Canadian who managed to jam the 17-pounder into the Sherman turret, and to do it he had to cram the thing on its side and take out all kinds of stuff from inside the tank to make space, but it actually turned out to be incredibly effective. I think the name, apparently Firefly, the name comes from the intense muzzle flash that would set fire to all of the grass in front of it when it fired. That's what I've heard is the reason for the name Firefly. And it's certainly a really, really impressive tank. So the Firefly VC is a premium version. You've also got the Tech Tree Sherman Firefly, and you've also got the Boilermaker Premium Firefly, which is based on the Dark Horse rollout comic books. Both the Tech Tree and the Boilermaker versions are based on the Sherman IC. So if any of you are wondering what the difference is, it's really in terms of the hull and the engine. So the hull on the IC has a composite hull, so it looks a lot rounder. And it also has with it the Wright Continental R975C4 engine, which was the original engine in the Sherman tanks. And it had a bit more horsepower than what you get in the VC, but it was, from what I've heard, a bit less reliable. So with the VC, which was actually the most common of the Fireflies in British service, it's based on a rolled steel hull, so it's a lot more angular at the front, and it's got a new Chrysler A57 multibank engine, which, whilst it seems to deliver a little bit less brake horsepower at 425, it was actually a bit more well liked. I mean, it was a complicated engine, but I think it was known for being fairly reliable, according to what I've read. And it meant that you had to extend the back of the hull on the tank. So the VC is a little bit longer and with an angular front, and the Boilermaker has got that. It looks a bit like a turtle. It's curved and round. So there you go. Difference between Sherman VC and Sherman IC. So I guess in that sense, the Sherman VC is probably the definitive Sherman, because it was Sherman Firefly, because it was more common, and it's obviously also really, really famous because of an action in France in August 1944 where Michael Wittmann, this famous German tank ace, was killed by a group of Sherman Fireflies. There's a Canadian Firefly, I think, and I think the credit goes to a gunner called Eakins. I think that's how you pronounce it. So yeah, very, very famous tank. So, enough about the history of this tank. Let's have a look at some of the statistics of what it can do. So first of all, this tank comes with a 30% silver bonus and a 30% XP bonus. Its base price is 3,200 gold, which isn't bad, I suppose, for a tier 6. It's slightly cheaper than the Boilermaker as well, which comes in at 3,750. And you get the same silver and XP bonuses on both of those tanks. In terms of modules, we've got that A57 multibank engine I was talking about. 425 horsepower, gives it a top speed of 40 km an hour, which is a bit faster than both of the other Sherman Fireflies. 20% chance of fire as well, which is the same for all of them. Here we have the famous 17-pounder Mark 7 gun. So the stats on its fire are the same across all of the Shermans. The only thing that's different here on the VC is you get slightly better accuracy at 0.36 rather than 0.38 on both of the other two. Although I should add, for both of the premiums, you only get that -6 degrees of depression, whereas you get the full -10 on the Tech Tree one, so that's something to keep in mind. It is, however, fairly quick at turning, at 43 degrees a second for the hull, and 44 for the turret. Now that's pretty quick. I think that's a little bit faster than the other ones, although not by much. And you've got a pretty good radio, a 570 meters range. That's comparable to the Boilermaker and better than a Tech Tree. Your ammo's nicely hidden away at the bottom there. I don't find I get ammo rack too often in it, although the front of your hull armour is pretty weak, so I guess just keep it in mind. In terms of crew, you want to watch out for the driver. He's pretty exposed. He'll be the one that tends to go, I find. Because I think it's only 50mm of armour across that front plate. So moving on to that armour, your floor is 12, you've got 19 on the engine deck, so watch out for artillery. 25 on top of the turret. Only got 38 on the sides of your tank, so it's not really very good for side scraping. And I think that's a problem with all of the Fireflies, all of the Shermans for that matter. And yeah, 50 on the front. You've got a bit more on your back, just behind the radio, and you've got a fairly hefty gun mantlet, but it is pretty small, so it's not really going to counter very much, to be honest. Basically, if you get hit on this, you're going to get penned. And with only... here are the hit points. With only 750 hit points, like all of the other Fireflies, you haven't got many to play around with. In terms of ammunition, you've got 171 mils of pen on your standard rounds, 239 on your premium, and 38 on HE. Again, same across all of the Fireflies. In terms of equipment, I've gone for tank destroyer setup, and I think that is, through trial and error, that is probably the technique you want to play this as a tank destroyer, and then use that mobility that comes with being a medium where you can. But I found that the Sherman hull, whilst you could set this up as a medium, and you could go for gun rammer, coated optics, and like a stabilizer or something, I find that the armour on a Sherman up at tier 6 it just doesn't stand up. You just get taken down too quickly. You want to keep at medium to long range. Just a side note to throw in here, if you like the kind of playstyle that goes with Fireflies, I would seriously consider the Sentinel AC4 experimental, or the unskinned version of that, because you get very, very similar gun handling statistics, but you do get that -10 degrees of gun depression. I think, personally, if I had to choose out of all three of the Fireflies and this thing, this is probably my favourite. I think it's a bit more versatile in terms of what you can do. I think it's also a bit of an underknown, underloved tank, and it is very cheap. It does come up on deals of the week and personal offers quite a lot. You can pick it up for about 2,000 gold. So, enough on theory. Let's jump into some gameplay. So I've got two games to show you, and the first one is what I would call more of a risky gameplay style. So we're in on Normandy. It's a tier tier 7 game, but there's only a couple of tier 7s in it, so it's actually pretty favourable to me, and that's why I'm playing quite aggressively here. So straight in, I saw that he wasn't looking or was distracted, and that there wasn't anybody else in that open area, so I took the gamble and jumped up there and managed to nab that. But it's one of the first of many risky moves that I make in this one, and I am lucky it works out, but it very easily might not have worked out, and I probably wouldn't recommend playing like this, to be honest. So again, the enemy don't really seem to be contending this area. Usually you'd have this swarming of lights and it would be a bit more dangerous for me to be there, and you might have more artillery as well, which luckily they don't have, and so I can be a little bit more aggressive, and I can see that this tiger's distracted by our guys on the 9 line, so I'm go around to try and get a shot in at him. And now, this initially works really well. I managed to plonk one squarely in his side, but instead of reversing out of there, which is what I should have done, I stayed to get that extra shot. Now, it was worth it in some ways because it ammo-racked him, and that's probably what saves my life in a second, but this angers him, he decides to come for me. And you can see, whilst it's got pretty good whole traverse speeds, your mobility is not that good, and so if somebody decides they want to ram you like this, you can't really get out of the way. And it's looking pretty hairy here, but luckily that Jackson comes in and saves the day for me. In the hurry, I only click affirmative. I should really have sent him a thanks, to be honest, but it happens. And we're off, we're out of the central area, we're going to go after this OI. Bounce the first one. And that's probably one thing to pick up on this tank, actually. The pen's not bad, but it isn't amazing either. But we get the shot in, we get the kill, we head off. Vengeance is soon to be ours when we find their artillery. I mean, not really vengeance for this game, I don't think I've been hit by artillery so far, but just vengeance for all of the other times when I've been hit by artillery trying to get this footage. But the mistake was to load HE there. I always forget the Crusader seems to be a bit better armoured than some of the other bits of artillery. So here is a good example of something else I want to point out with this tank. First of all, your gun depression is crap at -6, so it really does mean that you have to poke quite a lot of your tank out to get these shots in. And the second thing that makes this even worse is that whilst you've got that .36 accuracy, which on paper is really good, I found that unless you're fully aimed, it has a really annoying tendency to go off and miss. And this really makes it a problem if you get stuck on any kind of close range map and you try and use this as a bit of a peekaboo tank and go around corners. So I found it is very likely to miss when you do that. Right, and it's really frustrating because it's point blank range almost. There's nothing that's not in your reticule and somehow the shot just disappears off. So definitely something to watch out for. So I guess at this point I had a choice. I could have gone and helped my tank destroyer to cap. We probably would have got it before they could get ours, but I decided to make a run to the base, see if I could get a few more hits in. Probably not really very wise, given that I'm only on 120 hit points left. And we'll see in a second that I have a few more lucky breaks, but I kind of figured, help this ally out. He's only on 17 hit points, he can probably do all of the help he can get. And it is an Italian opponent I'm going up against anyway, so he's not that good, right? Italians aren't very good. So I managed to get one in. Didn't manage to quite track him though. Missed that one. Missed that one. And at this point, you can imagine the amount of cursing as I realise I've reversed into a house. But luckily I get the snapshot, the third one lucky. So again, I've lost track of how many lucky breaks I've had on the game so far. That's probably the third or fourth one. And I'm going to get another one in a minute when I get spotted by the Black Prince, which I should have checked first who I was up against. But it's a full health Black Prince. I was like, bugger, retreat. And I get saved by our team capping out. But all in all, very risky gameplay. By rights, I probably should have died. That's not really how you should play a Firefly. It worked this time though. I managed to get my first class. And not a bad amount of score off of it as well. So the next game that I've got to play is arguably a bit less exciting, But it's probably how you should play a Firefly. So we're on Lakeville, and this one is a tier 8 matchup. So this is what I find you tend to get a bit more in this tank actually. You tend to be bottom tier. And on maps which are not... Well, I don't actually, this one's not that badly suited. Basically, this tank doesn't work, I found, if you get any kind of corridor-based map. You want something with big open spaces. Because like I was saying before, if you're on corridor and you're trying to do peekaboo at closer ranges, I find it just tends to miss all the time, and you've got no hit points to play with either. But being set up as a TD, I can see quite far, and I decided that I will try and spot for my tank destroyers down here. I've got a little bit of cover here. And sure enough, they appear, although I didn't get the spot, unfortunately. But he gets taken down pretty quickly, because it's probably got about, I don't know if those guys behind can hit, but certainly the 3 down the 8 line can see him. He doesn't last that long. I think this is generally a good example of just how you play a support tank. It's not about getting the hits in per se, it's generally about being there to spot people and hold people up whilst your team can get into position to do something to help. So I'm going to get a bit of a shock in a minute. I mean, I was expecting there to be somebody down here. And there wasn't. I'm just trying to see if anybody is supported, because usually the enemy team will support those capturing the base from that ridgeline along right on the back there, along the K line. I can see they're there because I can see their tracers firing off. There we go, we got one of them. Get a nice one into his turret. Get another one in. You see what I mean? It can be really accurate, but you've got to be fully aimed and you can't rush your shots too much, like I did then, and dumped it into the rock. But obviously the downside, I guess, to this type of play is it's all luck dependent. Sometimes you pick a spot that you think is going to be good, and the enemy just don't come. Well, they do come and you get rushed and taken out. And it's like with any kind of tank where you try and play that support sniper role, you can have some really boring, miserable games in it. Luckily this one does pick up as it goes on. And so basically when I play these Fireflies, I'm fluctuating between this, which is how I know you should play it, and the more aggressive style, which I showed you in the last game, which sometimes pays off, sometimes goes disastrously wrong. And that's why I was saying that AC4 experimental is probably the better of the lot if you want that kind of flanking support tank playstyle. Just because you've got that versatility of the extra gun depression, and you've still got a lot of the speed to move position, and the same gun. But, having said that, it is a lovely looking tank though. Yeah, it's by far the best looking Firefly, I think. And there we go, there's my nasty surprise with the Playbringer, which is pretty much a direct comparable opponent here. It's also on a Sherman hull. It looks like it's probably even the Sherman 5 hull still. He's got the 90mm American gun on him, which has probably got a bit more alpha damage, I think, than my 17-pounder, although arguably not as accurate. In any case, I think he kind of had the advantage there over me, but I got saved by this Excalibur rushing forward. And I think just by having a good team spread like that, we've covered all of the bases, and the side has swung. We managed to light up that Object 244, which is another interesting new tank that's just come out actually on the Valor rewards charts. I'll have to look at doing a review on that one because I do quite like the thing. And now it's just time to try and get to their base, I guess. That's always a bit of a risk when you rush around it, you don't know quite what's waiting for you. And we got the strange rotating M40, M43 of death. I'm not quite sure what he's doing at the moment. Was he just trying to reorientate to face us? But then he seemed to go around in a bit of a circle then. I I don't know what's going on. You see what I mean? Didn't quite aim that fully, and you miss. This one's fully aimed though. You get there. So yeah, not as exciting a game in terms of kills or XP, but it played a part in helping the team to win nonetheless, and that's probably how you make the most out of Fireflies. So would I recommend it? Yeah, I would if you like your Fireflies. To be honest, the Tech Tree Firefly is just as good. It's only if you don't like that composite hull so much and you want a more real-to-life one, I would say go for the VC. But as I said, if you're not too fussed about it not being a Firefly to start with, probably consider the AC4 Experimental. So there we go. Thanks again to John for recommending this and for being so patient and waiting for me to get it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the Fireflies, how you've found playing with them works, any tips that you have, and let me know if you'd like anything else reviewed in future. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Coffee Guy out.